Guys, MadScientist here, and today I am back for day number 4 of r/RegularRevenge. I gotta get into my mind that I'm saying regular and not petty now. And because it's regular, I've got 3 stories lined up. First, we'll start off with Almost Make Me Infertile. I'll ruin your relationships. A long time ago, I was a young man in an all-boys secondary school. I was about 14 for any international readers, and my friends and I were regularly bullied by a large group of older guys. Being typically nerdy, we were prime candidates for bullying. The only saving grace was that we were a large group ourselves, so no one person was targeted more than any other. Unfortunately, that didn't matter as the bullying was brutal. On our school grounds, there was a small cabin that belonged to the local Boy Scouts that we used to hang out around on our lunch break. One day, we had a run-in with the bullies when they tried to steal our football. For daring to not hand it over, I was singled out for punishment. So I was grabbed by 4 of them, one each grabbing an arm and a leg, and carried around the corner to a small courtyard with a flagpole in the middle. After a few punches for struggling, I was swung backwards and forwards a few times before being swung legs apart and full force into the... Oh. Ow! Any attempts to describe how painful that was didn't do it justice. Fuck me in the dick! Ow! Thankfully, one of my friends had made a run for the teacher, and they were spotted coming towards the group by a lookout before they had a chance to take another swing, and they dropped me and legged it. I was carried to the school office, nauseous and in tears, and my mum was called. She found me with an ice pack between my legs and ghoulies the size of oranges. Ah! That's some big ghoulies. You might as well say he's got elephantitis. As she was talking to the receptionist and the teacher, my friends ran up to me and passed me a mobile phone. I was confused as I didn't own one, and it was at the time when they weren't nearly as common as they are now, and they didn't even have games on them yet. It was an early model Nokia with an LCD screen. I look at my friend and ask who it was. He told me one of the bullies had dropped it as they ran off, and he thought that I should have it as a small way of getting back at him. I took the phone and left with my mum. That evening, I was in my bedroom feeling sorry for myself, and I'd forgotten about the phone in my blazer pocket until I heard it go off. I took it out and saw he received a text message from his girlfriend. This was before phones had sophisticated locks, and the bully hadn't set a passcode. What an idiot. I had no idea which bully had owned the phone, but I had his name now at least. I decided to mess with him. I was off school the next day, but when I went back in, I talked to my friends about it, and we came up with a plan. One of my friends with a mobile was going to message him pretending to be a guy he'd met recently, and we were going to make it look like he'd been having a relationship with him and meeting in secret. We carried on sending messages for the rest of the week, and I was also replying to his girlfriend, although I deliberately made my replies shorter and less intimate than they had been before I got hold of the phone. I arranged for my bully to meet his girlfriend in the local town that Saturday, but was planning to stand her up, obviously, whilst simultaneously having my friend text the phone about ditching her to go over to his instead. I replied agreeing and said I'd tell her I could make it. I didn't. I waited in town where we were supposed to meet and saw a girl walk up and wait for a bit. She then got out her phone and typed a text. The phone went off in my pocket. I left it alone. She waited a few more minutes and texted me again. This time I walked around the corner out of sight and messaged her back asking who this was. She flipped out and shouted at me for messing her around. I told her that I found this phone on the floor of the bus station in that town, and if she knew the owner, I'd come and give it to her so she could give it back to the owner if she was nearby. She told me where she was, and I waited 5 minutes before walking around the corner and looking around for her. Eventually, through texting, we found each other and I gave her the phone. She thanked me and we went our separate ways. On Monday, I told my friends that we pulled it off and we just had to wait and see what happened. It wasn't long into the week when gossip started spreading around the school. Bully's boyfriend had read his messages and it seemed and had dumped him for having a gay affair. On top of that, she'd done it by going to his house on Sunday and calling him out in front of his parents, who it turns out were not fans of that sort of thing at all. When he denied it, she pulled out the phone and read out message after message. He claims he lost it over a week ago. His claims he lost it over a week ago were ignored, and I was not suspected. In response, his parents pretty much disowned him, and he was only saved by his uncle, who was a little more understanding. He lost contact with a lot of his friends at his uncle's house, as his uncle's house was a lot further away, so hanging out after school or at the weekend was almost impossible, and his preference for men was so well known by now that no girl seemed interested. As far as I know, his parents never took him back, and he moved to London to go to university to escape his reputation at home. I had only expected to break him and his girlfriend up, but that was an unexpected bonus. I'd say it went too far, but having your nut smashed off a flagpole tends to harden you to the plight of your bully. Jesus Christ, his balls dropped harder than ever. His balls got up and up in the space of one pole smash. Ask me out as a joke, I'll turn you into the joke. Sometimes you only have a few seconds to get revenge on someone and you have to take the opportunity. I was just a kid, and this whole thing plays out like a shower conversation, but I'm still so proud of myself when I look back on it. Background: at age 12, I was definitely one of the least popular kids in school, to the point of becoming depressed and suicidal. My parents pulled me out of that school, sent me to therapy, and sent me to a private school in where I was doing much better. A few months into this new school, I get a Friday night phone call from the most popular, prettiest, meanest girl from my old school who loved to torment me. Hey, it's so-and-so. Who? It's so-and-so, last name. Okay. At this point, I hear some snickering in the background, sounding like it's coming from both guys and girls. I immediately know that this is a prank call. I was wondering if you'd like to go out sometime. Huh? With you? Yeah. It'll be fun, right? Ha! No, not at all. Suddenly there's a few seconds of silence, both from her and the obvious kids in the background. Okay. Ha! Okay. I hear an "oh" in the background, and the phone quickly hangs up. In an instant, I had just completely turned the tables on this girl. Me, just some random loser kid that had been tormented by her and her friends for a year. Some kid who they couldn't even leave alone after transferring schools. And I had just flat out rejected her and turned her into a joke in front of her friends. It's like, she was teeing up and there was a triple strikeout. Yikes. And she turned into the joke of the whole conversation. Abused me and my mother for years, keep us out of our home, and stop me from getting a haircut. Enjoy having the entire neighborhood kick your ass and steal your shit. Ooh. As my username would suggest, this happened way back in 2011. Fucking hell, this happened in 2010. I graduated in 2011, which is why I'm fixated on that date. Sorry. The reason I'm compelled to share this now is because I graduate soon with my MS degree in mechanical engineering. My grades suck sucked all through high school, in many ways due to Michael, the subject of this post. And I've struggled with depression and anxiety over the years. I shared this story with my girlfriend this morning and she was shocked at it. I just never thought to share it here before. She told me to post it here. My mum dated a guy named Michael from the time I was 7 until December 17th, 2010. I had just recently turned 18 and was in my last year of high school. Michael was a person who did not deal well with issues he had from his own abusive upbringing. I've been a shit person before myself, and I'm sure I still have a lot of room to improve, so I'm never likely to speak poorly of people, because I think it can be accurately assumed that most people have a good reason for being the way they are. It's not an excuse, but I don't think people are bad. I think bad circumstances condition people to behave badly. Michael was a severe alcoholic. He was childish. He was obsessed with knives. We're talking about how he wished he could gut people alive. Hung around violent criminals and took me around them as a child. He was extremely verbally and emotionally abusive to my mother. Oh, Jesus Christ, he's the fucking trifecta. He's not the trifecta, he's the the double trifecta of just horrible. My mother wanted him to be my dad though, so to his credit, he filled the dad role as best he could. But the best he could do was to teach me extremely unhealthy relationship dynamics and how to glorify violence and bravado. At the end of high school, my mum's mum died and left my mum a house. The house was, is, decently sized, and while it's still in the ghetto, it's in a safe a part of the ghetto as there is. Everyone that lives in this corner of the city has been there for decades, and we all know each other very well. We're like a big family, but we keep to ourselves unless invited in by others. We respect boundaries, and that's what makes this small community a good one. Now, important to note, my neighbours and older bros are not angels. These people are violent criminals in their own right, but they were on my side, and this is important. So, the house. It was left to me and my mother. Michael refused to let us enter the home. My mum and I lived in the smallest, shittiest apartment in the most violent part of the city, and for 18-year-old me, I'd only just begun to reflect on life and realize how shitty Michael and my narcissistic mother had been towards me. I was fed up, and living in this disgusting, violent apartment was just fueling my rage every second. One day, I was especially furious. I don't know why, I just woke up in an absolute quiet rage. Contained myself through the school day, and I was just fixated on getting a haircut. That was my goal for the day. Just get a haircut, get home, go to bed. And it's very important to note that I'm in the boot for a badly sprained ankle at this time. That comes up later. My mum throws a monkey wrench in my plans. See, she was sure Michael was cheating on her again, so she demanded I go over to the house I grew up in, and they kicked us out of to inspect and see if there was another woman, or if there was evidence of other women being in the home. I protest, but to no avail. At this point, I am an inch from exploding. I drive over to the house and I knock at the door for 7 minutes. This pushed me to about half of an inch from explosion. I grew up in the house. I fucking knew the acoustics of it. I don't care if you're in the last room upstairs at the back of the house. If someone lightly taps the front door, you hear that shit. So I knew he was making me wait as some show of dominance that this was his house. He eventually unlocks the door and I push it open and push him back in the process. He yells out and asks me what was wrong, and I responded saying that I was there to make sure that he wasn't fucking anyone else in my grandmother's house. Now I'm a pretty large guy and Michael was small. Even back then I dwarfed him, but I've always been a gentle giant, as my mum says. I never got into a fight, almost never raised my voice or asserted myself with anyone. So for me to respond so firmly and disrespectfully, with no concern for how he felt, He backed off a bit in that moment. I noticed that. I began walking through every room of the house. I was finding nothing and no one, and I was fine with this. Remember, my goal is the haircut. That's all I want out of life right now. And then I get to Grandma's old room. I open the door and it slams back in my face. Then out steps Michael's brother, who was about my size, and he says to me, "Ain't nothing for you in there." I remember being so angry it was past the point of an explosion. I described it to my girlfriend as pure rage and malevolence, yet restrained. I had this black expression on my face, turned around and walked downstairs, and I told Michael in a calm voice, "Get your brother and leave now. I've had enough of you in my life." Michael then, believing I was intimidated by his brother, gets in my face and starts to scream and curse and threaten me. I stood there, honest to God, just looking at him like a lion looks at a weak, small, destructible gazelle. Literally thinking to myself, I can break you. He then yells to me to get the fuck out of my house. All of a sudden, I was snapped out of this trance, and I responded and said, I don't want to say it. I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. You have no house. You're homeless now. Get your brother and leave. He must have, again, recognized that his brother was all the way upstairs and I was inches away from him. But he's in too deep now. He has to commit lest his pride he'd be wounded. So he says, "Oh, you think I'm a bitch, right?" And of course I responded, "I think you're a homeless bitch." He then turns around and keeps repeating, "You think I'm a bitch?" He eventually comes back with 2 knives in his hands. I see this, and at this moment, I'm very seriously okay with the thought of dying right there and there. Life has always been shit, and I can't even get my damn haircut. This part still makes me cry even now. So I told him, "You're going to have to kill me the first time you swing with those." Then his brother comes downstairs. I never took my eyes off Michael. His brother stands on the stairs, a few feet away from Michael and I. Michael drops the knives and tries to tackle me and push me out of the house. I slip a little because of the boot, but once I get a little friction under the boot, literally feels like when your little cousin / sibling tries to fight you. In that moment, I thought about how I was going to destroy this man. His brother must have saw me smile, because then he jumped in and started pushing me as well. I don't know if I was stronger than I thought, or if the rage gave me the adrenaline rush, but I was pushing them both back. Michael's brother then decided to kick my boot, which hurt both my ankle and made me slip back. That, coupled with them pushing, eventually pushed me out of the front door, off the porch, and downstairs into the front of the house. And this is the angriest I have ever been in my life. I was angry to the point where I could have gladly hurt myself to hurt them. I was so overcome with emotion, I started to cry and my breathing got erratic. Michael and his brother were taunting me as this happened, and I just started to take off the boot. I didn't want the haircut anymore, I just wanted both of them hurt or dead. The next thing I noticed is that people started surrounding me. I'm still struggling to regain motor control and take off the damn boot. And then 2 of my older brothers from the neighborhood, Jiggy and Tyrone, kneeled down and consoled me. Jiggy asked me what was wrong and what happened. I told him about all the shit Michael had done over the years and what happened that day. When I got to the end, Tyrone said, "Hold up, little Chris. These motherfuckers put you out of Miss Mama?" That's what everyone used to call my grandma. House? After you told them to leave? Oh shit. Then both Jiggy and Tyrone started taking their shirts off and told me they'd take care of them if I said it. I then heard all the story behind me. Damn near the entire block was in our yard or in the street in front of our yard, and they were all calling out support. He ain't gone. Do you like that? He ain't gone. Do you like that, Lil Chris? Not on this street. And things like that. I looked up at Michael and his brother, and I could see the fear on their faces. I just shook my head, yes. Why do you shake your head, yes? And said not to kill them. Jiggy and Tyrone ran in the house after them and dragged them out into the front yard. Then a circle pretty much forms around them, and it was just the most spectacular beatdown I'd ever seen. After that, Jiggy said they'd help me take all their shit out of the house and told me to keep the shit I liked. So I did exactly that. I went in with like 10 people. I gave some shit away to them, kept some shit, and pretty much just gave Michael and his brother the clothes no one else wanted. They ended up leaving their clothes. Here's why. The next door neighbor was this old veteran. Real gritty, no nonsense old guy named Alvin. Alvin walked out with a shotgun. He walked over to these two bloody pups on the lawn and said, "Now get the fuck off my street." And he literally just yelled at them to get up and run, or crawl, or roll to get off the block. He followed them, stumbling up to the main road, and then he calmly walked back. And that was the last thing I ever saw or heard from either of them. The next few years were hell. Mum blamed me for ruining her relationship, and I had to unlearn all the terrible shit I had been taught in life and start to go to school to get my life in order. Things are better now. Whoa! I did not realize how wild these stories are gonna get. Holy fuck. Oh my god. At some point there's gonna be a death at some point there's gonna be a death that happens. Why is this madness? Links will be in the description to the main channel and this channel, which is just turning into absolute madness on Reddit. And also links on the screen to the playlist and the last episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when next video comes out. Ding, ding. I'm Mad Scientist. Mad Scientist out.